Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am thrilled to have the opportunity to present this information to you all. I want to begin our training today to remind all of you to take care of yourselves as we go through the training. It should last approximately 1 hour, but of course, at any point, if you need to pause the training and come back to it later, we completely understand. In the same breath, I also want to encourage you to always keep this around as a resource. If there's something that you need to go over multiple times, please feel free to rewind and do so. This will include a lot of very detailed but incredibly important information. And we're hoping to truly build the capacity of each of you to create a more accessible and safe environment for all of your patients. So thank you and welcome. My name is Brittany McBride, and I am the project coordinator with the Vaccine Education Initiative, and I am just thrilled to be your trainer today. We are going to go through a jam-packed but very fun agenda where I will be sharing the lessons we've learned through our Vaccine Education Initiative and the incredible impact that we can have within the autism and disability community when we work together. Now, because this training will be offered virtually, there won't be an opportunity to ask questions to me live. So what we have done is that at the end of the training, you will be provided access to a link to complete a very short survey. As a result of completing the survey, you will get a certificate of completion, and there will also be an opportunity for you to ask us additional questions or make any suggestions so that we can make this training better for providers and increase access for those who are interested. So, who are we and what do we do? The Autism Society of America is the nation's largest and oldest grassroots autism organization, and we've been serving the autism community since 1965. It is our mission to create connections, empowering everyone in the autism community with the resources they need to live fully. As you will learn throughout this presentation, no two experiences of autism will be the same, but one reality that is shared by many is the lack of accessible health care solutions. Now, the Autism Society of Greater New Orleans is a locally based nonprofit organization that is affiliated with the Autism Society of America. We serve Jefferson, Orleans, Plaquemines, St. Bernard, St. Tammany, Washington, St. Charles, St. James, and St. John the Baptist parishes. While we are a small but mighty organization, we have a number of programs which have been carefully chosen to fill in gaps in the available services in the Greater New Orleans area. Families and individuals who need any kind of information, from basic autism information to recommendations for service providers, can contact our information and referral program and receive personalized assistance 5 days a week at absolutely no cost. We also offer online support groups for caregivers in English and Spanish, and a social group for autistic adults. Inclusive community events and family outings give people a chance to connect with others in the area and enjoy inclusive recreational activities. And we also offer direct financial assistance once a year to area families and individuals through our mini grant program. Finally, we have our Vaccine Education Initiative, which you will learn more about today. Perfect. So you're probably asking yourself, what exactly do I need to do to get involved with the Vaccine Education Initiative? Well, you're already well on your way to doing your part of this partnership, and we're so grateful for your commitment. All we ask of you all and within your organization is to, 1, complete this training, which you've already started, complete the short form I mentioned previously to receive your certificate of completion. We ask you to utilize the strategies and skills learned in your visits with patients. And then, of course, we're going to ask that one person from your organization share the number of vaccines that are provided at your clinic with our Autism Society of the Greater New Orleans area staff once a month. As a result of this partnership, your clinic will then be designated as an Autism Society Greater New Orleans Area Sensory Accessible Clinic. Your clinic will also be highlighted on our Sensory Accessible Clinic resources list, as well as highlighted on our website and all of our social media channels. We definitely want to get the word out to folks about the great work that people are doing. Perfect. So let's take a moment and really set a strong foundation for all of us on this training so that we have a very clear understanding of what it is we're talking about in terms of autism and neurodiversity. The autism community is beautifully diverse and a part of the broader neurodiversity community. Before we dive into healthcare barriers and solutions, we'll review some foundational aspects of autism and neurodiversity. What is autism? Autism is an umbrella term for a range of neurodevelopmental differences which impact the way that the brain processes and uses information. It impacts everyone differently, sometimes in very visible ways, and other times in very subtle or invisible ways. Expression of the different categories of autistic traits will vary from person to person and can include communication differences, autistic communication styles, intense focuses or passions, sensory sensitivities or differences, and routine or repetition. These traits can impact individuals in many different ways, and some individuals may not experience all of them, or because autism is a dynamic disability, their expression of particular traits may vary from day to day. Autistic advocate Ashley McKay says the following about this color wheel visualization of autism as a spectrum of difference. The autism spectrum isn't a straight line of severity of symptoms. Instead, think of it as a highly detailed color wheel. Every small curved rectangular segment of each color slice of the wheel represents an autistic trait. The sample diagram to the right shows how an individual's personal configuration of autism traits might look. There's a whole spectrum of building blocks that make us who we are. No two autistic people have this exact same set of blocks, but we have our similarities because all of our blocks came from the same place. The uniqueness of each individual experience of autism has been summarized in the quote, "Once you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism." As of 2023, 1 in 36 children are diagnosed with autism. Around 1/3 of autistic children are identified with an intellectual disability. Nearly 3/4 of autistic children are diagnosed with a co-occurring medical or mental health condition. Particularly common co-occurring conditions include epilepsy, hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and gastrointestinal problems. Anxiety disorders affect up to 40% of individuals with autism and may be worsened by autistic masking, which is the process of suppressing autistic traits and ways of being in order to appear neurotypical. This means that in addition to challenges an autistic individual may experience as a result of being autistic, they also have additional challenges from their co-occurring medical conditions. This can make it more difficult to identify issues in need of medical treatment, and delays in care can result. It's also important to reiterate that vaccines do not cause autism. This myth is perpetuated by fear-based and pathologizing views of what it means to be autistic, and in our experience is best combated by providing neurodiversity affirming factual information about autism alongside educational information combating the myth. Our organization has a flyer on this topic and an educational flyer on autism to accompany it in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese, which are both freely available for printing. Now, while the term neurodiversity originally developed within the autistic community, the neurodiversity paradigm is not about autism exclusively, but about the full spectrum of human neurocognitive variation, recognizing that people experience and interact with the world around them in many different ways. and that there is no one right way of thinking, learning, and behaving. Let's take a look at a real-world example to get a better understanding. Some of you are iPhone users. Others are Android users. An Apple app won't work on an Android device. That's not because the app or the phone is bad or wrong or broken. They're different operating systems. The same logic applies to the concept of neurodiversity. With increasing evidence showing that autistic masking is linked to autistic burnout, mental health difficulties like depression and anxiety, and substantially increased rates of suicide in autistic individuals later in life, it is vital to increase the inclusion and accessibility of our communities, healthcare environments, schools, and families. To accommodate for neurodiversity, we can change our approach and adapt to support differences. Now let's take a quick moment here so that we can be very intentional about language, because it's such an incredible way to create that system of accountability and accessibility for people when we're communicating. You will notice me using a range of terms when referring to autism throughout this training. While many of us have been taught to use person-first language, example, putting one's personhood before their diagnosis, a growing number of adults surveyed share a preference for identity-first language, or autistic, citing that autism is integral to their personhood. Individuals who prefer identity-first language often say that their autism is as inseparable a part of them as their gender and race, both of which are commonly used to describe people using identity-first language. For example, you wouldn't say a person with womanness. It is important to note that within the autism community, there are many different experiences, preferences, and perspectives. And so it is important to ask how individuals you work with prefer to identify. Furthermore, autistic advocates have been speaking out against the use of functioning labels for years, yet their usage persists, especially in medical settings. These terms, in addition to being harmful and disrespectful, especially to those labeled low functioning, also do not provide useful information on how best to support an individual, and have been used to justify not appropriately supporting individuals labeled high functioning and segregation and low expectations for people labeled low functioning. It is more informative and useful to talk about an individual's support needs in specific areas. For example, someone may have high support needs for personal hygiene, but low support needs for feeding and toileting. Moving away from functioning labels is an important step in reducing ableism in our communities and healthcare environments. Differences in the way that information is processed, accessed, and used is central to the autistic experience. Some individuals may struggle to process auditory information, but gain access when text is provided. Others may be visual processors and, regardless of their reading level, require visual support to ensure effective understanding. In terms of communication, information processing, this can be broken down into expressive and receptive processing. An autistic individual may struggle with expressive language, which may cause them to be completely non-speaking or situationally non-speaking. Or they may struggle with receptive language and require a longer processing time to understand spoken instructions or information. Someone might struggle with both expressive and receptive language at the same or different times, or exclusively one or the other. Access to verbal communication varies from person to person and from setting to setting. And access to speech does not always lead to access to effective communication, particularly for individuals with apraxia, but we'll get into that a little bit later. It is important to adapt our communication style, including the speed and style, whether that be spoken, written, or symbols, to the needs of each individual. Communication differences for autistic individuals are very common, with current estimates showing 25 to 30% of autistic individuals are non-speaking throughout their lifespan, impacting individuals both with and without a co-occurring intellectual disability. And an additional 20% may present as situationally non-speaking when stressed. And 87% of autistic individuals have some degree of apraxia and dyspraxia. Apraxia occurs when the brain is unable to make and deliver correct movement instructions to the body, even if the person has the ability and desire to execute them. This is why many non-speakers cannot speak or move reliably. The non-speaking community in general prefers the term non-speaking. While communicating using spoken words formed by the mouth is the most popular type of communication for most providers and caregivers, there are many other ways people can communicate, including using sign language, icons or pictures, alternative augmentative communication or AAC devices, or spelling on a letterboard with or without assistance. For individuals with apraxia, establishing a reliable method of communication is the most important place to start to help them through any challenges they may be experiencing. Non-speaking advocates often talk about feeling trapped inside their own bodies, which do not respond to what their brains instruct them to do. Another common phrase in this community is non-speaking does not equal non-hearing. And advocates report many situations where individuals, providers, and caregivers have spoken about them in hurtful ways right in front of them. It's important for healthcare providers to presume competence while interacting with these patients. Essentially, presuming competence means that we should treat every individual, regardless of their outward presentation, as a full autonomous human being who understands language. Too often, autistic individuals who are non-speaking or who have unreliable speech aren't given opportunities to engage in health advocacy. When the information that is presented is inaccessible, and when there are no accommodations in place to allow for alternative methods of communication, the message that is received is often, "You won't understand this," or "You don't need to know this." Sensory messages are filtered differently for a large majority of autistic individuals, leading to a range of experiences. A person may be sensitive to one type of sensory stimuli, but under-responsive to other types of input. This can create challenges in everyday situations that increase stress and anxiety, impacting one's sense of safety in their body and in the community. Every autistic person's sensory system is unique. So while one person may have a sensitivity to sounds, another may be under-responsive to auditory stimuli. Sensory processing can vary from day to day and situation to situation, and stressful environments can cause an increase in sensory sensitivities. So what is stimming? Stimming is short for self-stimulatory behavior, and it's now being reframed by many as self-regulatory behavior. It is a form of sensory seeking aimed at keeping one's sensory system in balance. Repetitive movements, sounds, or fidgeting can help people with autism stay calm, relieve stress, or block out uncomfortable sensory input. It can look like many things. It can look like rocking, flapping, jumping, and spinning. It can look like opening books and inhaling the smell of old ink and paper. It can sound like humming. Regardless of what it looks like or sounds like, autistic advocates are sharing more and more about what stimming feels like, reporting, "I don't know why my body needs to do this, but if I don't, I am headed for sensory overload." Allowing for safe stimming has become central to conversations about autistic wellness in recent years. While the examples listed on the slide are some of the most commonly discussed stimming behaviors, stims can be anything that serves to help a person regulate their sensory input, and may be culturally specific in some intersectional autistic communities. An example shared by some Black autistic advocates is swinging the beads in their hair and listening to the sound. To help you understand the importance of stimming as a regulatory action, think about the regulating stim behaviors you engage in and how they make you feel. Socially acceptable stims that many of you may identify with include playing with jewelry, running your fingers through your hair, scrolling through social media on your cell phone, listening to a favorite song, tapping your fingers or knuckles on a table, or chewing gum. Too much stimuli, not enough stimuli, or the wrong kinds of sensory input can cause anxiety and even physical pain, leading to extreme distress. Sensory overload happens when sensory stimuli overwhelms your ability to cope. This can be triggered by a single event, like an unexpected loud noise, or it can build up over time due to the effort it takes to cope with sensory sensitivities in daily life. Sensory overload can feel like intense anxiety, a need to escape the situation, or difficulty communicating. When the brain has to put all of its resources into sensory processing, it can shut off other functions like speech, decision-making, and information processing. Sensory overload is a common phenomenon shared by children, teens, and adults on the spectrum. One who described their experience saying, "If I get sensory overload, then I just shut down. You get what's known as fragmentation. It's weird, like being tuned into 40 TV channels." Some may shut down. Others may experience the autonomic nervous system's fight, flight, or fright responses. Aggressive and disruptive behaviors in autistic individuals are most commonly caused by averse and overloading sensory input. Chronic pain leading to reduced ability to cope with other sensory experiences is another common cause of aggressive behaviors and often goes unnoticed for some time, especially for non-speaking individuals. An individual experiencing sensory overload does not need to be chastised or punished. Rather, they should be supported in diffusing, de-escalating, and re-regulating with comforting sensory input. For many, healthcare settings create a perfect storm of anxiety, which can lead to aggressive and disruptive behaviors in some cases. The good news is, with increased training and access to accommodative supports, we can reduce stress at every stage of vaccination and medical visits, improving outcomes for patients, providers, and of course, parents and caregivers. Intersectionality is the concept that social categories such as race, gender, age, etc., are interconnected and create overlapping systems of oppression or advantage. The huge variation of intersectional identities in the autistic community makes it unique. Autistic individuals exist in every population and within every marginalized community. Autistic individuals represent all ages, races, ethnicities, gender identities, socioeconomic statuses, and may also have other disabilities, such as being deaf or hard of hearing, blind, or utilizing wheelchairs to ambulate, to name a few. Studies have found that autistic individuals are more likely to identify as transgender or non-binary, with one study showing 24% of gender-diverse individuals being autistic as compared with 5% of cisgendered individuals. Autistic individuals with multiple marginalized identities are at a greater risk of negative health outcomes and experiencing barriers to care. Autism, a culture, a community, a unique human experience. Autism is more than a label, more than a set of characteristic differences, more than a disability. Autism is a culture. It is a community, a unique human experience. one which celebrates differences and honors many varied ways of being and belonging. Recognizing and respecting differences and offering accommodations is a first step on our way towards true acceptance and inclusion. At the Autism Society, we believe inclusion is the foundation for improving outcomes in the global autism community, and it is the foundation of our accessible vaccination model. No two experiences of autism will be the same, but one reality that is shared by many is the lack of accessible healthcare solutions. With 1 in 36 children receiving an autism diagnosis, co-occurring medical and mental health conditions, and premature mortality rates, it is critical that we prioritize health equity in the autism and disability community. In addition to known social determinants of health, the autism community faces unique barriers to accessible healthcare, stemming from sensory, social, cognitive, and communication differences. These barriers are too often viewed as patient barriers, when in fact, they are environmental barriers, resource barriers, training barriers, system barriers, status quo barriers, all which contribute to pervasive trust barriers. To realize health equity, we must reframe these barriers and recognize our collective ability, our responsibility to identify solutions that instead create access. Difficulty accessing screening and diagnosis is one of the most commonly reported barriers to healthcare shared with our organization. There are particular worldwide disparities in timely and accurate diagnoses for women and girls, people of color, and low-income individuals. The main barriers that prevent early, accurate diagnosis of children with autism include lack of knowledge, social stigma around autism, dismissal of parents' first concerns by healthcare providers, usually related to a lack of knowledge around how autistic traits can present, or outdated and stigmatized views of autism, and barriers to screening, including financial, transportation, or even language. If you listen to stories from late identified autistic individuals, a common theme is that upon receiving their diagnosis or self-identifying as autistic, suddenly their whole lives make more sense, and they no longer feel like broken neurotypical persons, but a normal autistic one. This sense of self-acceptance is huge for improving mental health and increased awareness of their needs as autistic individuals, reduces stress, and increases accessibility. In the New Orleans area specifically, financial barriers are a huge issue for our community, as only a handful of assessment providers accept Medicaid, and they have lengthy wait lists for appointments. Our organization does maintain a list of providers, including those who do assessments for adults, and families and individuals can call us for personalized assistance and information. So now that we have a firm understanding of autism, we now want to take a moment and shift our focus to the Vaccine Education Initiative, also known as VEI. The VEI began in response to COVID-19 with support from the CDC and the Association of University Centers on Disabilities. Our first year served as a pilot program, allowing us to learn from our community and identify best practices, which have led to improved vaccine experiences in communities across the country. Together, we have redesigned the vaccine experience, reducing anxiety at every stage. In 2023, the Autism Society became a proud partner of the Aging and Disability Vaccination Collaboration to increase access and uptake of vaccines within the autism and disability communities, with a focus on aging, Black, Indigenous, people of color, Latino, LGBTQIA+, and rural populations. We began the pilot by listening to those we serve to better understand our community's needs related to vaccine education, confidence, and access. As a result, we were surprised to learn that we had misidentified the reason behind much of vaccine hesitancy in the autism community. Throughout this project, we heard again and again from parents who were vaccine hesitant, not because they didn't trust the safety or efficacy of the vaccine, even though there is still some of this, but because they were unwilling to subject their child to a 4-person restraint and the long-lasting trauma related to the vaccine experience. The following slides include a sampling of some of the comments that families shared with us about their past experience. I stopped bringing my 3-year-old for her routine vaccines because she was so scared of shots, she had to be held down, and I couldn't keep doing that to her. Waiting at appointments is hard for me. The sounds, the lights, and the uncertainty dysregulate me before I even get to the shot. They sent the police over while my son was having a meltdown because they were afraid of him. That only made things worse. He's big, but he's a person, and he was scared. He wasn't trying to hurt anyone. He just needed someone to slow down and take time to communicate with him, not to be intimidated. I'm really scared of needles. Just seeing one makes me feel faint. It's hard for me to talk to people when I'm afraid, and people don't always understand that. It's hard to find a place to get my non-speaking son his flu shot. So many people don't know how to communicate with him, and they will just give him the shot without even talking to him first to let him know what is going to happen. You can see the level of anxiety surrounding vaccines. Families shared how even just one bad medical experience had the potential to contribute to ongoing trust issues with healthcare providers. And while many families commented about how challenging their past experiences were, they also expressed hope that the vaccine process could be transformed to a more positive experience, which is exactly what we work to do. In the last 2 years of this work, we've identified high-impact strategies and resources which make a difference for participants, providers, and families and caregivers. Many experience needle phobia and anxiety around vaccinations. By designing our clinics to meet the needs of autistic individuals, especially those with some of the most complex needs, we are removing barriers and creating access for a much larger population, for anyone who needs social, sensory, environmental, cognitive, or communication accommodations. Our guide to accessible vaccine clinics offer practical tips that can help transform the vaccine experience for all involved. Our guide offers key resources and tips to create inclusive practices, sensory-friendly environments, and improved access to care. The guide is available in both English and Spanish, and we're going to break down each section of the guide and discuss supports at each step of the process. Pre-registration. Starting with pre-registration support, there are a number of barriers to accessibility that occur before anyone steps into a clinic to get a vaccine. The standard communication, sign-up, and preparation process can be modified to increase accessibility, reduce stress, and improve outcomes. Ensuring that there is clear and accurate information available in plain language and multiple modalities when possible allows individuals to know what to expect. Uncertainty and the lack of clear communication and information is a major barrier to accessibility reported by autistic individuals. How we applied this principle when running our own adaptive vaccine clinics is we started by using multiple methods to announce and promote vaccine clinics. We've utilized social media, our website, direct emails, physical flyers at events, and even assisted people one-on-one via phone calls and Google Meet. We also make sure to have plain language supports and symbol communication or visual references when possible. This type of support, while required for those who don't read, is beneficial to many more. The registration process itself is also an excellent way to gather information needed to support a successful experience. Beyond the standard registration questions, we ask about past vaccine experiences. and information about any supports that the person receiving the vaccine may find helpful, offering visual samples of strategies. We ask about social communication preferences, recognizing that some benefit from social conversation as a distractor, and that for others, any social demand is anxiety-producing. Instead of the standard, "So, you're in 8th grade, how's that going?" we can equip providers with patients' favorite subject or passion to bring up to discuss, or a provider can know ahead if an individual prefers only informational communication and not small talk or off-topic conversation. This information can prevent an experience that is awkward for some and anxiety-producing for others. Giving people the option to fill out required paperwork ahead, either online or physical forms, also increases accessibility by reducing wait times, which can be dysregulating, and ensuring that they are able to complete as many elements of the process from a safe, familiar environment as possible. The less demands on the patient day of, the less likelihood there is of them becoming dysregulated or struggling. Encourage your patients or their parents to bring items or objects that help them or their loved ones feel safe. At our clinics, we offer a range of sensory tools, such as weighted lap pads, fidgets, sensory bottles, noise-canceling headphones, and small toys. But for some, there are very specific and personalized things from home that carry a deeper sense of safety. If your clinic is unable to supply things like fidgets, noise-canceling headphones, or communication supports, remind patients or their family members as appropriate to bring the supports that help them in other settings. The information provided by families helps us ensure that we are best prepared on the day of the clinic. We also provide supports to ensure that vaccine recipients are best prepared, using evidence-based practices for supporting those with autism, including social stories, visual supports, and visual schedules. We created plain language resources, social narratives, step-by-step guides, and visual schedules to support individuals and families as they prepare for their visit. While the typical vaccine appointment often lasts 15 minutes or less, what many providers might not realize is that families often spend days or even weeks preparing for that 15 minutes. Much of our work to increase accessibility was to develop supports to help families in their preparation. By creating predictability and structure to an otherwise stressful and chaotic experience, we can reduce anxiety for parents, family, caregivers, and the healthcare professionals. Again, while social stories are an evidence-based practice for supporting those with autism, they can support a much wider range of vaccine recipients. This is also an example of a strategy that can be generalized to other healthcare appointments. Much of the anxiety surrounding healthcare stems from not knowing what to expect. Providers can help their patients prepare for appointments by providing a step-by-step overview of what will happen for different routine appointments. This slide shows examples of our social stories and visual schedules, which are available for free. You can download them online and they can be used or linked by anyone at any time. To plan for sensory and environmental support, we identified sensory and physical barriers by mapping out the vaccine appointment from arrival to departure. Designing sensory-friendly environments can mean different things for different people, but these are examples of high-impact strategies that we consider go-to supports with relatively simple solutions that can be applied in most settings. We encourage you to provide choices. Autistic adults interviewed on what makes their community experience either accessible or disabling frequently talked about the importance of having choices and as much control as possible over their sensory experience. An easy way to do this is to ensure that you're welcoming of personalized use of devices to support a calm, preferred environment. Reduce fluorescent lights when possible. Use half power, equip a go-to room or space with inexpensive, fire-safe light filters. Variety of seating options. Consider your seating options in the waiting room or in observation spaces. Can you add a beanbag, a wiggle stool, or bungee chair? Are there options for group seating in places where a person could sit alone or with more privacy? Additionally, suggesting to parents, particularly of young children, to bring a picnic blanket they can spread on the floor if their child tends to prefer the floor can be valuable. Noise-canceling headphones allow for personalized headphones, earbuds, or watching music or YouTube videos that offer preferred auditory input. Sensory fidgets can provide individuals with regulating sensory input. Having a variety of fidgets in different textures and styles can help meet the most sensory needs. Tactile, visual, and auditory fidgets are all common options. Many fidget toys have elements from multiple senses. For example, spinners are visual and tactile. Poppers are tactile and auditory. You can look at ways to reduce crowds. Think of the experience from entry to the building to exit and look for ways to reduce sensory and social overwhelm. Are there options for paperwork to be filled out in advance to avoid the waiting room altogether? Provide some visual supports indicating where to go and what to do. Clearly marked stations can help ensure a smooth process and transitions from one step to the next. Embrace stimming. As we previously discussed, stims are vital regulatory behaviors for many autistic individuals, and they should be accepted and embraced in the healthcare environment to allow individuals to stay regulated. Provide options to escape if needed. Another commonly dysregulating experience reported by autistic individuals is feeling trapped in an unpleasant environment. Having clear communication of places a patient or their family can go if they need to take a break and escape the environment, as well as how they can get back to finish the visit when they're feeling better, will help people regulate if necessary. Lengthen the standard appointment. Providing these supports often requires an additional 5 to 10 minutes, but as stated earlier, those 5 to 10 minutes make a big difference for your patients and families. Many with autism might need some extra time to get acclimated to the environment and staff. Allowing extra time for the vaccine appointment itself gives the entire vaccination team the time it takes to get the vaccine recipient comfortable and relaxed prior to introducing the shot. It also allows time for the staff to build rapport by asking questions about high interest or passion areas. Earlier, we discussed some of the communication differences in our community, and that too often those who communicate non-verbally are left out of healthcare conversations. Access to communication is central to closing the health equity gap, which is why we recommend offering the following supports at your clinic: communication boards, written prompts, assistive technology, phones or tablets, and allowing for parent or caregiver feedback or recommendation, or a combination of all of those items. Communication and letter boards are a great tool. These were developed by the Autism Society of America's Council of Autistic Advisors and an AAC users group specifically for use in healthcare environments. We have been distributing these boards to community members, and we also include one in every healthcare accessibility kit we give out. Communication and letter boards can be used to facilitate two-way communication between providers and non-speaking individuals. Our staff have also used these communication boards to enable two-way communication with individuals who speak different languages. It is also important to note, when interacting with AAC users, providers should address statements and questions directly to the AAC user that they would typically address to a speaking patient. Patients who utilize AAC devices to communicate may need additional time to respond to prompts. Next, we'll talk about some specific considerations and adaptive equipment for immunizers. One of the most common vaccine barriers shared by participants is anxiety or PTSD related to restraint. Many healthcare providers at our events and trainings have also shared that restraining patients is traumatizing for them as well. We aim to reduce anxiety at every stage. Through the VEI, we seek to transform the vaccine experience. Replacing restraint with alternative strategies is key to our training and the success of the VEI model. Before restraint is utilized as a strategy, it is important to take careful consideration that the situation is life-threatening enough to warrant its use. We took note of the high-impact tools and resources that made a difference for participants and designed accessible vaccine kits for families and healthcare providers, along with freely available resources such as guides, communication boards, social narratives, and visual schedules. These kits help provide adaptive equipment to address barriers head-on. They include sensory tools like sunglasses, fidgets, and noise-canceling headphones, as well as shot blockers to reduce pain. Kits for healthcare providers will also include everything in the community kit, plus a discount code for Buzzy Bees, which we'll learn a little bit about more in a moment. At events we support, we offer two types of injection tools, Buzzy Bees and shot blockers. The healthcare accessibility kits you will receive will also contain a shot blocker and a discount code for the Buzzy Bees. A Buzzy Bee is a small device using a combination of cooling and vibration to block sharp pains and provide distraction when giving injections or other medical procedures. Shot blockers are a flexible piece of plastic that use a number of blunt contact points to saturate the sensory signals around an injection site, distracting the patients from the pain signals of the needle poke. It is a simple, non-invasive, drug-free method that instantly reduces needle pain and anxiety. Using a shot blocker has minimal impact on the standard process of giving vaccines. As the provider, all you need to do is press it to the patient's skin with the points down at the vaccine location, just like you would normally pinch their skin, and give the shot right through the opening in the shot blocker. For most patients, this completely eliminates the feeling of the sharp pain from the needle poke. These pain-deferring tools are one of the many high-impact strategies that are making a big difference for providers and vaccine recipients. The 3 Ps, predictability. Many autistic individuals report that things happening that are unexpected or outside of what they are prepared for are very dysregulating. Making the environment as predictable as possible with clear communication ahead of the fact is a powerful strategy. The visual supports we discussed earlier are a great way to increase predictability. We also encourage vaccine teams to narrate and foreshadow what they're going to do and when. Talk about what will happen and what each person can expect next. Always give a person fair warning before touching them. All of this can build trust, ensuring that people with autism are not afraid to come back. Patience is required when interacting with autistic patients, as most of them require additional time to process information and get comfortable in an environment. Think about what are the non-negotiables of the appointment. For some of our partners, this includes that the person receiving the vaccine must be sitting and must receive the shot in either the arm or leg. They let go of everything else that normally dictate a vaccine appointment. Could the person be sitting in a beanbag chair? Sure. Is it fine for them to be watching their favorite TV show on a tablet? Absolutely. Is it okay for them to play with the syringe filled with water and no needle so that the shot doesn't seem so scary? Yes, not a problem. Finally, play is an important element of working with individuals of all ages and can be tailored to their age and needs. Playfulness is a more effective way to gain cooperation than force. Many autistic and otherwise neurodivergent individuals find forceful or compliance-based approaches dysregulating and triggering. Fostering a collaborative and play-based environment for all ages can improve outcomes. Some other key strategies include relational support. Ensure trusted caregivers are a key part of the process to help buffer the individual from any negative experiences that remain during the vaccine process. Relational support and co-regulation from trusted cares improve outcomes and reduces disruptive behavior. Sometimes a calm and kind person is the only regulation tool needed. Caregiver-informed strategies. Communicate openly with caregivers and welcome feedback and suggestions from them on how you can best meet the individualized needs of each patient. Investing in relationships and learning about individualized support needs from patients and their caregivers requires additional time and energy, but the positive impacts of this relational support has a great impact. Facilitate choice and autonomy. At all points in the process, facilitate as much choice and autonomy as possible. This is a proven strategy to reduce dysregulation and increase accessibility. To not have control of your own environment, of your sensory system, of your communication system, of your body, takes its toll. Anxiety often increases when we feel like we don't have control over a situation and when we're not sure what to expect. Offering meaningful choices at all points in the vaccination process can help reduce anxiety. Next, I'm going to share some testimonials from participants who experience these techniques at our events. I've worked in peds for 25 years and I've never seen anything like this. There's no reason why we couldn't do this in every clinic we can. The different tools used help to distract my son and make him as comfortable and relaxed as possible. Also, nobody held him down. There was no anxiety about getting the second shot because of how smooth the first one went. This experience was a game changer for my family. Thank you for the best vaccination experience ever. I appreciate the patience my children were shown, and getting to play afterwards helped create a more positive memory of the event, which will hopefully help the next time a vaccine is needed. This was a great experience. We would love to see this expand to include more vaccinations like the flu shot each year. The shot blocker makes me brave of shots. The feedback we've received from caregivers and patients about the modified vaccine experience has been overwhelmingly positive. Often we saw that when children came back for their second shots in the COVID vaccine series, they were much calmer and less stressed because their first experience had been so positive. Here are just a few more comments about appreciation for the flexibility, patience, and the tools that were provided. Everyone deserves accessible healthcare, and we believe that it is possible for everyone. The VEI has allowed us to grow our program and our mission to achieve health equity. Many of the strategies that reduce barriers to vaccination can be applied in general healthcare settings. Proactively offering accommodations can improve outcomes for all patients, no matter their age or ability level. Together, we can. Our long-term goal is to build long-lasting partnerships with local healthcare providers to work towards accessible healthcare for the autism community. We are here to offer support to you. Of course, we would love to hear from you, so please feel free to send us an email at info@asgno.org with any questions, needs, or inquiries. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to us, whether that be via email or by leaving a voicemail on our answering system at 504-603-6548. Links to all of our resources previewed today will also be shared and can also be found on our website. Remember, the connection is you. We would like to take this time to thank our partner, US Aging, for their continued support of our participation in the Aging and Disability Vaccination Collaborative. Thank you, and have an absolutely wonderful day.